As you know, life has changed dramatically due to this unexpected pandemic. Uncertainty is looming large, but we can't help it. Life will go on. Our Vidyapit already has taken initiative to take online classes, and I am sorry to join a bit late in this regard. This laudable approach is really very good. Must I confess that I don't have expertise in online teaching, so please bear with me. Teaching, as you know, is a bipolar process where you need the students to interact and like this. It should not be a one-way traffic, but as the situation comes, you have to face the situation, and also you have to carry on a couple of lessons in spite of this COVID-19. Now, especially in our Vidyapit, in your half-yearly exam, 3 lessons which I am supposed to teach. That is, first one is A Day in the Zoo by Gerald Durrell, All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury, and Mile the Mist Upon the Hill by Emily Jane Bronte. So here your book is there, already you know, and the textbook The Bliss. But in this regard, especially this type of classes when you are taking about that, it reminds me, or also I can't resist, especially that story, The Fun They Had by Isaac Asimov. It is a science fiction, and it was written most probably before 1990, and there he projected how the school learning, or rather school teaching, will be. And the date which is mentioned in the lesson is 2157. The fun that is science, in a science fiction, what you know, the definition already you know. You might have read one science fiction in class 6, and in class 9 also this Ray Bradbury's lesson is also a science fiction. The definition of a science fiction and imagine scientific discoveries in future. That means future has been predicted much before. Now here see, here the situation is like this, the story element is like this, that one brother and sister, Tom and Margie, they have found a book. Now they will think about how their grandfathers used to go to the school and attending school and gossiping with the students, girls and boys, and like this. Now the starting, I'll read out couple of portion in order to give you that idea that what will be the future learning teaching will be. But what is the tragedy is this, just within another couple of that recently, so quickly it has become a reality. This story, what he predicted, that it is going to happen in 2157, now it is 220, and this year it has now become true. Now see, I am reading. Margie even wrote about it that night in a diary on the page headed 17 May 2157, that means 2157, she wrote, "Today Tommy found a real book. It was a very old book. Margie's grandfather once said that when he was a little boy, his grandfather told him that there was a time when all stories were printed on paper." So they were discussing that how their grandfathers, grandmothers used to enjoy, that means real classroom teaching. Now there is one line is there. They turned the pages, which were yellow and crinkly, and it was awfully funny to read words that stood still instead of moving the way they were supposed to on screen. you know. Now then, skipping certain portion, and here it is written, Maji, I don't know what kind of school they had all the time ago. She read the book over his shoulder for a while, then said, anyway, they had a teacher. Now see the term. They had a teacher. It was man. So there was a teacher, it was man. See the specific use of pronoun here. See, teacher is not considered as a human being. It is predicted that in near future there will be no real teacher, rather mechanical teacher in a virtual classroom teaching like this. There will be no real classroom situation. And then the line is this. It was a man. See, first line, they had a teacher. It was a man. A man. A man. How could a man be a teacher? See, the surprise. Well, he just told the boys and girls things and gave them homework and asked them questions. A man isn't smart enough. Sure he is. My father knows as much as my teacher. Then the concluding one part is I am telling you the finishing touch. Then I'll go to my lesson. Maji did so with a sigh. Maji was thinking about the old schools they had when her grandfather's grandfather was a little boy. All the kids from the whole neighborhood came laughing and shouting in the schoolyard, sitting together in the schoolroom, going home together at the end of the day. They learned the same thing so they could help one another with the homework and talk about it. And the teachers were people. See the very patriotic, and teachers were people. Now you are not getting this thing. That human touch is necessary in learning, classroom teaching, whatever it is. And especially I am telling you, I am grateful to the boys of Vidyapith who are so excellent. Actually their presence inspire you to teach a series of lessons. No problem, there is no doubt about it. Now, regarding teaching our lesson, which already I have decided that today simply I'll give you the introduction. This slide, they mild the mist upon the hill. Now, it is written by Emily Bronte. Now, in order to learn, this is basically a subjective poem. As you know, the poetry can be divided into two categories. One is called subjective poetry, where you can identify the poet in the poem, and another one is objective poetry, where you can't identify the poet in the poem. But here, you see the I is used. That means first person narrative indicates that it is little bit of autobiographical in nature. And she belongs to Victorian age. I'm giving you a little bit introduction. I'm not going to, I don't tell you that elaborately, because it's a vast area. And before that, before Victorian age, there was Romantic age, which is also known as the age of Wordsworth. Already you have read in class 7 one poem, We Are Seven, by William Wordsworth. That age starts in the year 1798. 1798 starting after the publication of Lyrical Ballads. Okay, then it goes up to 1830. But surprisingly, I am telling you the out of context, but you should know it actually. The Wordsworth lived up to 1850, but his poetic career terminated in 1830. And 1830 is the beginning, that means 1831 is the beginning of the Victorian period, and which is also known as the age of Tennyson. Lord Tennyson is a famous English poet. In this period, Robert Browning also, he also belongs, and also his wife Elizabeth Barrett Browning, the two great British poets. But this Emily Bronte and Bronte sisters, actually the younger, that there are three sisters, one is three out of three sisters. One is your one sister is Emily Jane Bronte. Sorry. First one is, I can tell you that that Emily Jane Bronte is basically a novelist. She is famous as a novelist, but not so famous as a rather poet. Altogether, she wrote 71 poems. 71 poems, and her novel Othering Heights. Your textbook that you should follow my text actually here. Her text Othering Heights, don't pronounce the word as Uthering. Is this Othering Heights is her masterpiece, or rather you can say the greatest work of our Emily Jane Bronte. But in order to explain or in order to understand her poem, it is superficially the poem is very simple. But if you study her span of life, it is not only for 30 years. As per your textbook, you follow the textbook. See here it is mentioned. Emily Jane Bronte, 1818 to 1848. 1818 to 1848. Then calculate only for 30 years. Even also her other sisters also, their span of life is also for almost more or less 30 or 30 more than 30 years. Almost same. That is called, you can say also, it's a meteoric career. Such a gifted rather writer or rather a poet. Yeah, there are three sisters I was talking about. I missed their name. One is Charlotte Bronte, Emily Bronte, and Anne Bronte. And here we find that she had a rather very happy childhood, and there was always a regret, especially when after 25 or like this, the very short span of life, and she realized the life was that might be, and she died of the tuberculosis, and life was not so easy or happy. That's why there was a regret. In this poem also you'll find this thing, a constant contrast between there is a tussle, you can say, or tug of war, or the shifting also, oscillating between the happy life with that of sad life. First it starts with sad life, but ending will be there is a touch of happy life, though it is written in the present tense. Now I am reading that introductory part, and then I will give you the little bit of analysis of this poem, and then line by line I will explain in my next class. Okay. Now see, you follow me. The mild mist upon the hill. Here what you find. First, her biography as per written in your textbook, was an English poet and novelist, best remembered for her only novel, Othering Heights, long considered a classic of English literature. Now, classic means classic. Well, you might have heard the term, a classic century scored by Virat Kohli. So that means of high quality, all of these. But that novel was not recognized in her life. Later on, it was recognized. Normally, it happens to everyone also. Here, I have seen, or you also know, that even your Satyajit Ray, after getting Oscar, he got Bharat Ratna. Even your Mother Teresa, she got first in 1979 Nobel Prize for Peace. Then she got, it was followed by that your Bharat Ratna. Now see, here it is written, in this one, the blue mist that surrounds the distant mountains reminds the poet of the unhappy days of youth and childhood that she has left behind. My question is here, see, it is almost like that when she see the mild mist upon the hill, that was one kind of a turning point that reminds her of her happy, beautiful days, especially that means in her childhood and youth. See, as she describes the landscape, she shifts from, oscillates from the present moment and to the past, and then to the present again. You follow me, just you write this thing analysis, and as per I have done it actually for your rather better understanding of the poem. The blue mist that surrounds the distant mountains indicates that there will be no rain the next day. She remembers the secure life she lived under the care of her father in his house. She enjoys looking at the sweet blue mist upon the mountain chain in the distant horizon. The dew on the green grass look like morning tears, scents of passing fragrance makes her feel dreamy. All this makes her feel nostalgic for the days of her childhood. Now, when I start from line by line, they are actually in the poem technically. It is, I told you, that autobiographical in nature. She talks about her life. That means it is a contrast between her past life and the present life. Past life was happy, that means especially in her childhood days and also in her youth. And that reminds her that your father, under her protection, his protection, they used to live without any worry and everything. So that is very wonderful thing is there, and it has altogether 16 lines. That means 4, 4, 4. That means 4 quatrains. A quatrain, as you know, quatrain is a stanza of 4 lines. Stanza of 4 lines. Here the rhyming pattern is like this: A B A B, C D C D, E F E F, G H G H. That normal rhyming pattern. First it starts with the present, then it moves on to the past, then also past, then ultimately ends with then past for 2 lines, the last line you will find, and then that called the present. That reminds her of the present life. While actually watching that hill covered with mild mist, that reminds her also that her past youthful or other childhood days, which was very happy. Now here a couple of words you will find that normally it is said that I am starting the introduction already I talked about, that mild the mist upon the hill, telling not of storms tomorrow. No, the day has swept its field, spent its store of silent sorrow. Oh, I am gone back to the days of youth. See, there is something. I am a child once more, and knit my father's sheltering roof near the old hall door. I watch this cloudy evening fall after a day of rain, blue mist, sweet mists of summer fall. The horizon's mountain chain, the damp stands in the long green grass, as thick as morning's tears, and dreamy scents of fragrance pass that breathe over the ears. When you start actually that couple of words, for example, the mild mist upon the hill, that means the mist, you can follow also, you can write also, the mist encircling the distant hills tells that there will be no storm or rain. That means it rained heavily throughout the day, telling not of storms tomorrow, that there will be no storm. That means the day will be good. Here you will see the personification of the very word day. Telling not of storms tomorrow, no. The day has wept its field. That means already it has rained. No means here, this term actually acknowledging the negative statement. No is very important here. It's a change of thought. The day has wept its field. Sir, weeping, normally when you say weep, wept. So here it is a wept is field. What does it indicate? Weeping actually associated with when someone is unhappy or suffering. So that indicates her suffering actually might be, we are not sure about it. Any poetry, rather any poem, any great work, it is a little bit of enigma. That means you can take simply one hard and fast rule. Telling not of storms tomorrow, no, the day has wept its fill. That means there has been rainfall throughout the day. It is as if the day has expressed all its sorrow, spent its store of silent sorrow. That means it rained heavily, and also it has spent or rather expressed its sorrow. Oh, I am gone back to the days of, while thinking that thing. That means her present life, now there is a shifting of past life. Oh, I am gone back to the days of youth. I am a child once more. It was her strongest desire of childhood days. It's recalling, reminiscing, remembering her past good life. So that already she has spent. So normally what happens, we have also rather normally in our life also, we also think about, sometimes reminisce about our good days when we have been suffering or whatever it is. Then you think about your good days, good incidents, happy moments, or like this. I am a child once more. That means the poet reminisces or rather recalls her good childhood days. And where? Under and neath my father's sheltering roof. That means here the short form of beneath means under, and neath my father's sheltering roof means here roof. You can here associate with that what you call that protection. Protection under, that means under the safe protection of her father. They used to live, so there was no worryless life. Normally what you have been enjoying now, your father is the head of your family, what is called paterfamilias, which was used by Mahatma Gandhi. So, this is very important. This stanza is the most important stanza, and also here you find the exuberance of the poet. Oh, I am gone back to the days of my youth. I am a child once more, and neath my father's sheltering roof. And near the old hall door, that means she recollects also their house, or rather their sweet home, having rather key which had old hall, that big hall was there, and from there she recollects the hall door of their house. Especially, that she spent her childhood days in Yorkshire. So that was a natural beauty, was so excellent, and that is and quite natural also. And England as a whole, actually, if you study the geography of England, you'll find their natural scenery, especially in the Lake District and other different places, are so beautiful. And I watch this cloud evening fall. Now I watch. From there he used to watch. From there, that means from her father's, or their sweet home, from that hall door, he used to watch that the cloud evening fall. The same scene. Now the one point you have to keep in mind, that once it was not so happy. The same scene, the same mild mist upon the hill, this is the common scene, and whatever it is now, in those days, that gave him a lot of joy. I watched this cloudy evening fall after a day of rain, blue mist, sweet mist of summer fall. Blue mist, blue also is a color, you can say, the kind of a dreamy color that makes you rather to dream, or like this. Blue mist, sweet mist of summer fall. Summer fall means here a thick cloud. The horizon's mountain chain. As you know, horizon Bengali called Diganto, where actually an imaginary line where the mountain and sky meet. Now, and now in the next stanza you can find. So here you have got it. First, the starting is there, and here she has personified that you're telling me that day, actually says he has personified. Day has wept its fill. Already I told you that personified when you are attributing life to inanimate object. Attributing, just like John Keats in his famous ode to the Nightingales, he has used that Beauty cannot keep her lustrous eyes. That means whatever that means beautiful lady, you may be a rather beautiful lady, but one day you will not rather, it will not continue her beauty. One day you will rather become old and like this. So here also, just like in the same way, she has rather here personified this word, very word, the day. The day has wept its fill. Now you come to the point. The second part is there, second stanza especially. She talked about her good childhood days, happy childhood days. Then comes entire already mentioning, see the line is there. I watched this cloudy evening fall after a day of rain, blue mist, sweet mist. Then all the good words are there. Blue mist, sweet mist, and summer fall, the horizon's mountain chain. That means it's really a thing of beauty. So it is a joy forever. She enjoyed the situation, that scene, and particularly in that area where she spent her childhood days. Yorkshire, that is an excellent scenic beauty is there. Now towards the end, the last stanza, you find, you follow 47 page, that the damp stands in the long green grass. Now here, the damp, here damp means here as per your textbook, wet, or it seems that she seems to refer here the dewdrops. The damp stands in the long green grass. Now she has come to his present life. This line, after skipping. So there is rather, it is very difficult, like you can't say. The shifting, quick shifting. From there is only, I am a child once here. After that there is gap. Spent its store on silent sorrow. Then, oh, I am gone back to the days of youth. It's a past life. Now then, after that, the horizon's mountain describing the that scenes here through her recollection. Where you have learnt it actually while reading year 7. The famous definition of poetry by William Wordsworth. Poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. That means first you have experienced certain things, then recollected in tranquility, then your poetic creation. That was his idea. And somehow in the same extent she is also recollecting those days actually. And the mist, this actually, the mild and mist upon the hill, this, seeing this scene, that reminds her also. That means she was transported to her childhood days, youthful days, which was so happy and so favorable. Oh, now then, but the present life is not so happy. It was sad, might be she was suffering, and we are not sure about it. In this regard, I can quote one line actually. The bird was singing, and different people are interpreting in different ways. First comes the Rishi. Then he is telling, अरे चिड़िया तो गा रही है सीताराम दशरथ. See, same bird is singing and he is interpreting चिड़िया गा रही सीताराम दशरथ. Then comes the grocer. बोले चिड़िया गा रही है हल्दी मिर्च अदरक. Then comes the finally that wrestler. बोले चिड़िया ना तो गा रही है सीताराम दशरथ, ना तो गा रही हल्दी मिर्च अदरक, वो तो गा रही दंड बैठक कसरत. So it may vary, and also it was pointed out, those who have seen, I think you might have seen that movie, the Tare Zameen Par, where there was a discussion actually, that means regarding the interpretation of the poem. The teacher was not satisfied, because normally we think that there is only one ready-made meaning, but a poem can be interpreted in many ways for many people. So here, so in this poem also, it is superficially simple but not so simple. You see, the shifting and all things are there, references there. Damp, normally it means wet, but here it means contextual meaning. He is referring the dewdrop. And when you say drop, tears, suppose, and also weeping, there are all associated with sadness, man's sadness. The damp stands in the long green grass, as thick as morning tears. So this type of reference, I've got one poem is there, to one who has been long in city pent. There is the idea by, it was written by John Keats. It was the description or the experience of a poet or a city dweller who has spent the whole day in a city life, in another countryside, who is a city dweller, spend whole day in a village area or a countryside, and when the day ends, when he is returning back, there was a feeling of sadness. So one line is there, I can quote you, that he mourns that day so soon as glided by, even like the passage of an angel's tear. So one line is there. What is the association here? That damp stand here, damp, that wet means here, the dewdrop refers to here, which is rather, here we find dewdrops on whom? Which thing? On the green grass. So they are also, angel's tear means also dewdrop. So comparing, their kids comparing that the passing of the day with that of dewdrop. That is also sad, feeling of sadness is there. Here also dewdrop symbolizes sadness here in this regard. There is a parallel link is there, because he is followed by, he was John Keats also, rather romantic poet. The damp stands in the long green grass as thick as morning tears. The dewdrops on long thin grass resembles morning's tears. Here the poet has personified morning. See, that is the thing, that one that may almost, you can see that experience is actually none but the poet herself. She is talking about her suffering, and there is always a feeling of, here you find nostalgia, loneliness, these are the things are there. She feels nostalgic while reading this, seeing the scene, recalls that thing, her childhood days, and also loneliness is there. She was unmarried, as you know, only life of hardly 30 years. And that after that, a thick as morning tears. Tears also associated with rather our unhappiness or sadness.